Rain drifted across the cracked windows of the small-town repair shop as night came down over Maryland. The place smelled of oil, metal, and long hours. Noah Green wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the old clock on the wall. It was almost 10. Most men had gone home long ago, but he stayed behind to finish the last job before heading back to his daughter. Emma would already be asleep, her stuffed bear tucked under her chin. He bent over the hood of a sedan, the light above him buzzing. The sound of the storm outside mixed with the low hum of country radio from a dusty speaker on the counter. For Noah, nights like this were normal. Since his wife left years ago, the shop had become his second home, his place of peace. He liked the honesty of tools and engines. He only needed care and patience, not words. The rain turned heavier. Through the glass doors, bright headlights cut through the dark like a warning. Noah frowned. It was unusual for anyone to come this late. The lights grew closer, until a black SUV swerved, hit a puddle and rolled into the parking lot coughing smoke. Noah dropped the rag and ran out. The rain hit his face cold and sharp. The driver's door opened slowly. A woman stepped out, shivering, even soaked and pale under the streetlight. She looked like she didn't belong in a place like this. Her clothes were fine, the kind worn by women who knew about meetings and boardrooms. Her hair clung to her face, and the heels of her shoes sank into the wet ground. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice low and tired. The car just stopped working. "Bad night for a breakdown," Noah said as he reached for the hood latch. "You all right?" She nodded without speaking and hugged her coat tighter. He lifted the hood and took one look at the tangled mess of wires. The problem was bad. Fixing it tonight would take hours. Engines overheated. "You can't drive it till tomorrow," he said. "You got somewhere to stay?" That was when she looked at him with eyes that didn't seem built for asking favors. They were proud but empty, like they'd run out of fight. The storm hissed around them. Then she whispered, "Can I sleep in your car?" Whoa, for a moment Noah couldn't speak. The way she said it wasn't casual. It was half apology, half plea. He was a man used to solving broken machines, not broken people. He stared at the wet ground, then at her trembling shoulders. "My car?" he asked. "It's not much warmer than outside." She gave a weak smile. "I just need somewhere safe until morning. I don't want to bother anyone." He shook his head slowly. "No chance I'm letting you sit in a car all night. You can wait in the office. It's dry at least." The woman hesitated. "I couldn't." "Sure you can," Noah said gently. "The couch is not fancy, but it beats rain." She looked at him again, then at the dark road behind her. Finally, she nodded and followed him inside. The office was small and cluttered, filled with old parts, a coffee pot, and a broken fan. Still, it was warm and dry. She removed her coat, careful not to drip on his papers. Her sweater was plain, her necklace simple. But there was something about her that seemed expensive in another way, like quiet power trying to rest. "Sit," Noah said, reaching for a blanket from a box in the corner. "Name's Noah Green." She took the blanket and held it close. "Clara," she said softly. Clara Vance. The name rang faintly in his mind. He'd heard it before, maybe on a news report or a business channel his brother watched. But she didn't look like someone from television just now. She looked lost. He poured her a cup of warm coffee. She thanked him, her hand shaking slightly as she drank. Her eyes moved around the room, taking in the photos on the wall. One showed a smiling girl with missing teeth and pigtails. "Your daughter?" she asked. "Emma," Noah said. 8 years old? She thinks I can fix anything?" Clara smiled a little. "She's lucky." Noah leaned against the counter. "You got family waiting for you somewhere?" Her smile faded. "Not really. I was on my way to the coast for some time alone." He nodded. "Seems like the world chose a bad time to slow you down. Or maybe it did me a favor," she said. She looked into her cup as if it might have answers. For a few moments they listened to the rain beat against the roof. It sounded steady, like the world catching its breath. Clara's shoulders dropped, her eyes closing for just a second. "You can rest," he said. "I'll finish up here, and you'll be safe." She murmured something that sounded like thanks, lay back on the couch, and pulled the blanket to her chin. The storm outside softened. Noah turned off the main light and went back to his tools. He kept glancing toward the couch, half waiting for her to vanish like a dream, but she stayed there, quiet and still. He didn't know who she truly was or why she looked so tired. But for the first time in a long while, the empty shop felt a little less lonely. Clara woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of tools clinking on metal. The air inside the small office was warm and smelled of oil and bread from the bakery next door. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the cracked sign outside the window that read Green S Auto Repair and remembered it all. Noah stood near the front counter, tightening a bolt on a part that looked miles away from her world of computers and business meetings. He looked calm, as if nothing around him could hurry him. The sight gave her a strange kind of peace. "Morning," he said, glancing over his shoulder. "Coffee's on the table. I made it a bit strong. Hope that's fine." She nodded slowly and sat up. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said, voice still low and unsure. "No trouble," Noah replied. The storm stopped before dawn. "Your car's better now, but I'll need to check it again before you head out." Clara looked at her phone. It had died overnight. The battery was as empty as she felt. She asked. "Couple of hours," Noah said. "You can sit tight. No rush here." She smiled faintly at that. No rush. It was a phrase that didn't belong in her usual vocabulary. Every hour of her life used to have a meeting or a call. Now she had nowhere to be, and that silence scared her a bit. Noah poured her a cup of coffee and handed it over. His hands were rough, scarred in a way that showed years of steady work. She noticed the dirt under his nails and the ease in his eyes. There was no pretending in the way he talked. He leaned against the desk. "So Clara Vance? That name's familiar." "What? You run a tech company, right? Silverline Technologies?" She nodded, embarrassed. "You've heard of it?" He let out a quiet chuckle. "My brother reads business news more than he works. Talks about big companies like they're movies. Said your company made software that helps cities manage power grids." "That's the one," she answered. "I used to think it would change the world, does it?" he asked. "Maybe," she said softly. "But it changed me too. Not always for the better." Noah didn't ask more. He could see the weight behind her words. He went back to the engine, rolling up his sleeves. Clara watched him work, his movements smooth and certain. It was strange to her how he seemed fully present in what he was doing. When he finally stood up again, his shirt had new oil stains, but he was grinning. "That should do it," he said. "You'll be able to drive again." She looked at the clock. It wasn't even 9 yet. She could have thanked him and left, but something inside her slowed her down. She found herself walking to the counter and asking, "Can I help you clean up?" He blinked, unsure if she meant it. "I don't usually get help," he said. "I don't usually offer," she said with a small smile. So she stayed. She helped him wipe tools, toss scraps into the bin, and put boxes in neat stacks. At first she moved awkwardly, but soon the work began to feel almost peaceful. Her head cleared. The sound of rain drying on the roof and the soft click of metal made her feel calm in a way she hadn't felt in months. Noah watched her from time to time, wondering what a woman like her was doing here among rust and bolts. Whatever reason she had for running from her old life, it seemed serious. But he liked that she didn't act proud or distant now. She just worked quietly, her fine sweater brushing against dusty shelves. When the car was ready, he walked outside with her. The morning air smelled like wet earth, and the ground still shimmered from rain. Clara looked around at the small town waking up. Children waited for buses. A man carried boxes from his bakery. Everything moved slowly. It was all so different from the busy city she had left behind. Noah stood beside her car and handed over her keys. "Glad it's fixed." "You're good to go," he said. Clara held the keys and stared at them for a long time. "It's funny," she said. "I have a house, an office, a driver, everything I need. Yet last night was the first time I slept without thinking about work." Noah wiped his hands on a rag. "You needed a break, that's all." She looked at him, half smiling. "I think I needed a place that felt real." He didn't know what to say to that, just nodded and stepped back. She lingered, though, her hands tightening on the steering wheel. She looked at the girl in the picture taped to his window again, then turned to him. "If you ever need a favor," she said, "for your shop or your family, call this number." She gave him a sleek card, her name printed in clean silver letters. "I owe you one." He took it politely, though part of him wanted to laugh. He doubted he'd ever call. People like her didn't usually come back to small towns. Clara got in her car, started the engine, and rolled down the window. "Thank you for not letting me sleep in the car." she said through the open space. Noah gave a small nod. "Take care, Clara." She drove off into the sunlight, the black SUV gleaming with droplets from the storm. Noah watched until the sound of her tires faded away. He tucked the business card into his pocket and went back inside. He looked around the quiet shop. Everything was the same, but felt slightly different, as if some invisible part of his life had shifted. He didn't know then that her path and his would cross again, changing them both in ways neither could guess. The morning sun filled the small kitchen with a soft light. Noah was making pancakes while Emma sat at the table drawing hearts and stars on a napkin. The radio played an old country song, and for a few minutes, the world seemed calm. It had been 3 weeks since that stormy night when Clara Vance appeared at his shop. She had left early the next morning, and though Noah told himself she belonged to another world, her memory still came back to him in quiet moments. "Dad, can we visit the park after breakfast?" Emma asked, swinging her legs. "If we finish your homework first," Noah said, flipping a pancake. Deal, she said, grinning. The sound of the shop doorbell rang. Noah blinked in surprise. It was Sunday, and he had locked the front door. He wiped his hands and went to check. Outside stood a delivery man, holding a narrow envelope, with his name written in neat handwriting. It looked formal, not like a bill or advertisement. Noah thanked the man and took it inside. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single folded letter, printed on fine paper. The first line made his stomach tighten. It was from Clara. She thanked him again for helping her that night, and said she hoped he was well. She also said that if he ever came to the city, she wanted him to visit her company, building to meet someone who could talk about expanding his shop's small engine repair system. She had included a contact name and address. Noah smiled and shook his head. "That woman doesn't forget," he muttered. Emma peered over the table. "Who's the letter from?" Noah considered how to explain. "Just a friend from the night it rained," he said. "Someone whose car needed fixing." "Oh," Emma said, eyes curious. "Was she nice?" He thought about her tired smile, and the way she had looked around his small office like it was the first safe place she had seen in a long time. "Yeah," he said. "She was nice." He set the letter aside and tried to focus on breakfast, but his mind kept running over her words. She hadn't said much, yet each line felt carefully chosen. That afternoon, while Emma worked on her homework, he found himself washing his hands again and again, as if trying to clear the restlessness away. At the shop on Monday morning, he tried to think of practical matters. The old roof had started leaking again, and the paint on the sign was fading. Repairs cost money he didn't have. The letter kept slipping back into his thoughts. Maybe Clara's offer wasn't just polite talk. During lunch, he walked to the small cafe across the street. The owners, Mr. and Mrs. Dalton, had known him since he was a boy. They were setting out fresh bread rolls when he came in. "You look thoughtful today," Mrs. Dalton said, smiling. He laughed lightly. "Got a letter from someone a while back. A woman I met during that big storm." Mr. Dalton raised a brow. "A woman, huh? It's not like that," Noah said quickly. "She's from the city. Helped her fix her SUV that night." Mrs. Dalton poured him a cup of coffee. "Sometimes city folks surprise you," she said. "They can have kind hearts too." He nodded but stayed quiet. His thoughts wouldn't stop spinning. He kept seeing her face in the dim office light. That evening, after putting Emma to bed, Noah went to his small desk and reread the letter. At the bottom was a handwritten note in blue ink. It said, "You helped me that night when I had forgotten what kindness was. If you need help, please don't keep standing in the rain." He stared at those words for a long time. Then he folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his wallet. 2 weeks later, trouble came knocking. A notice arrived from the bank. The shop's loan payments were behind, and if he could not make up the difference soon, they would start the process to take the property. Noah sat down hard on the workbench, his hands shaking slightly. He had fought for years to keep the shop running, to build a stable home for Emma. Losing it was not an option. But numbers on paper didn't care about that. That night, he barely slept. He watched the shadows move across the ceiling and listened to Emma breathing in the next room. The letter in his wallet felt heavier than ever before. By morning, he made a decision, called the number written at the bottom. A calm voice answered and said Miss Vance was in a meeting but would receive the message. A few hours later, Noah's phone rang. "Noah," Clara's voice said from the other end. "Got your message. Are you all right?" He almost said yes, but stopped himself. "Not really," he admitted. "The shop's in trouble." "I didn't want to ask, but you don't have to say more," Clara said softly. "I'll come down this weekend. We'll talk in person." He couldn't find words for a moment. "You don't have to drive here just for that," he said finally. "I know," she replied, "but I want to." When the call ended, Noah leaned against the counter. The steady hum of machines filled the silent shop. He felt a strange mix of worry and something else he couldn't name, maybe hope. That Friday evening, the weather changed again. The sky grew heavy with gray, and a light drizzle fell on the road outside. As Noah closed the shop, headlights appeared in the distance. He didn't have to guess who it was. Her black car rolled in slowly, shining under the streetlight. Clara stepped out, her coat brushing against the rain. Her eyes met his, and for some reason, Noah's heart began to race the same way it had that first night when she whispered, "Can I sleep in your car?" Clara stepped inside the shop, shaking the rain from her coat. Noah had wiped the counter and made a small pot of coffee, though his hands were still nervous. He could fix engines without thinking twice, yet talking about losing his shop felt harder than any repair job. "You must be tired from the drive," he said. "I'm fine," Clara said, brushing her hair back. "It's nice to be here again." "I missed the quiet." Noah found himself smiling. "Not everyone says that about this town." She looked around at the walls, the toolbox, the framed picture of Emma's first day at school. "It feels real," she said. "That's rare where I live." They sat down at the small table beside the office door. The storm outside was gentle, only a light sound against the windows. Noah told her about the bank notice, about bills falling behind, and the cost of keeping the shop open. "I'll find a way somehow," he said, more to himself than to her. Clara listened without interrupting. "How much time do you have?" she asked. "About a month before they start the process," he said. "But I don't want a handout. I just needed someone to talk to. I guess I thought you'd understand." She reached into her bag and took out a folder. "I thought you might say that," she said, smiling faintly. Inside were printed papers, sketches, and a small business plan. "I have an idea. I've been planning a new project at work, something that focuses on green energy and community trade programs. We need someone to work on simple prototype engines in small towns. You could be part of it." Noah leaned back, unsure what to say. "Me? I'm just one guy fixing cars in a shed." She shook her head. "You're more than that. You care about what you make." "That's exactly the kind of person I want for this." He studied her face, searching for the catch. "And what would I be doing? I'd cover your debt through the company project. Return, you'd maintain our prototype engines for rural tests. It would only take part of your time, and it gives you security for the shop." Noah rubbed his chin. "It sounds too kind." "It's not kindness," she said softly. "It's a fair deal. You help me test something important, and make sure you don't lose what you've built." He looked down at the papers she'd placed on the table. The neat lines and corporate stamps made him nervous, yet her tone carried sincerity. "You didn't have to come here for this," he said. "I wanted to," Clara said. "You reminded me what honest work looks like. I wanted to be part of that again." The silence between them stretched, broken only by the wind. Finally, Noah reached out and picked up the folder. "All right," he said. "I'll give it a try." Clara smiled in relief. It was the first time he had seen her smile fully, without tension. He poured her more coffee, and they spent the next hour going over the details. Her calm voice filled the space, while his pencil scratched against the paper. Later, as they walked out to her car, Emma ran into the yard wearing her red rain boots. She had stayed with a neighbor while Noah worked, but the sight of Clara made her brighten at once. "You're back," she said, waving. Clara knelt down to her level. "Hello again, engineer," she said warmly. "Still inventing new things?" Emma nodded proudly. "Dad and I built a birdhouse. The birds haven't moved in yet, though." "They will," Clara said. "Sometimes it takes them a little while to trust a new home." The words struck Noah quietly, though he said nothing. Emma asked Clara to stay for dinner, and to his surprise, Clara agreed. Inside the house, they sat around the kitchen table, eating Emma's favorite spaghetti. Clara told simple stories about her childhood. Not the polished kind told in magazines, but memories about her mother fixing old radios in their small apartment. Noah watched her relax for the first time since he'd met her. She laughed easily with Emma, calling her clever each time she made a joke. After Emma went to bed, the two of them sat on the porch with mugs of tea. The rain had stopped, and the night air smelled of wet pine and earth. "You didn't have to bring your city world here," Noah said quietly. Clara glanced at him. "Maybe I wanted to see what it feels like to build something real again. Silverline made me wealthy, but it also made me lonely." Noah studied her hands resting around the mug. They were delicate yet strong, shaped by typing and boardrooms, but not afraid of a grease-stained table anymore. "You said once you wanted a different road," she said. "Maybe this is part of that road for both of us." He nodded slowly, unsure how to answer. A quiet understanding passed between them, something that didn't need words. When it grew late, he walked her to her car. The sky was thick with clouds, but peaceful after the rain. As she opened the door, she turned back to him. "I'll come by next week to finalize the paperwork. Keep the shop running. You're going to need it ready." Noah smiled. "I'll be here." She slipped into the driver's seat. Before starting the engine, she looked at him through the open window. "Noah," she said softly, "thank you for calling." He nodded once, unable to speak. As her car rolled away, the taillights glowed red against the wet road. He stood there for a long time, listening to the hum of the distant highway and the slow, steady rhythm of water dripping from the roof. Something inside him felt lighter, as if a broken part had just started to work again. 1 month later, the new project began to take shape. The corner of Noah's shop turned into a small workspace filled with clean tools, bright metal pieces, and rough sketches taped to the wall. Clara visited every weekend to check on progress, her car always pulling in at the same quiet hour. The whole town started to notice, and Mrs. Dalton from the cafe teased Noah about his fancy friend from the city. He would only smile and say they were working on engines, though his voice always softened when he said her name. "Emma liked those weekends more than any others?" Clara brought notebooks and helped her with small math problems while Noah worked on the machines. Emma called her Miss Clara at first, then one day simply called her Clara, and the name stayed that way. The three of them made an easy routine of work, dinner, and laughter that filled the air like the sound of summer cicadas. But peace rarely stays untouched. Clara's phone rang more and more during their weekends. She had left a deputy in charge of Silverline Technologies, and the news from the office started to trouble her. One night, while Noah was fixing a part, her phone buzzed again. She stepped outside to answer, pacing under the soft streetlight. When she came back in, her smile looked thinner. "Trouble?" Noah asked. "Just company politics," she replied, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "A board member is trying to push me out of my own project," he frowned. "You built that place from nothing." "Can they really do that?" "They can try," she said quietly. "But I'm not giving up." Her words came strong, but later that night she looked lost again. Noah saw it when she thought he wasn't watching. He wished he could fix people the way he fixed cars, with patience and the right tools. A few days later, another surprise came. Emma's mother, Lily, showed up at the shop without warning. She had left years ago and rarely sent more than a birthday card. She stood by the doorway with a suitcase in hand, her hair tied up and her eyes full of something Noah could not read. "Lily," he said slowly, setting down a wrench. "What are you doing here?" She shifted on her feet. "Want to see Emma?" "I've got a job nearby now. I want to try again." The sound of the words startled him. Did not hate her, but the memory of her leaving still lived in the back of his heart. "Emma's at school," he said. "You can see her after class, but don't make promises you can't keep." She nodded stiffly. "I've changed, Noah. I mean it this time." Clara arrived late that same afternoon, wearing her usual calm smile until she noticed the tension in the air. Lily turned quickly and gave a small smile that did not reach her eyes. "You must be the one he talks about," Lily said. "Ooh, the big city helper." "That's me," Clara answered politely. "I've heard about you too." The air felt sharper after that. Even Emma sensed it when she came home. She hugged her mother but stayed close to Noah's side. For days afterward, everything in the house carried quiet edges. Lily wanted to visit often, while Clara kept her distance, not wanting to interfere. One evening, Noah sat outside thinking hard. Clara came out and sat next to him, the night breeze moving through her hair. "I can step back for a while," she said softly. "I don't want to make things harder for Emma." "You don't have to," Noah said. "Emma likes having you here. It just takes time to figure things out." Clara looked down at her hands. "Sometimes time changes everything, Noah." He turned to her. "You sound like you're saying goodbye." She shook her head. "I'm not leaving." but I might have to travel for work again. The board is pushing, and I can't ignore it forever." Noah sat quiet for a long time. He wanted to tell her to stay, but knew it was not fair to hold her back. People like Clara carried whole worlds in their hands. Still, when she looked at him, something inside him leaned forward before his mind could stop it. "I'll wait," he said simply. Clara smiled, but her eyes glistened. "You make it sound easy." "It isn't," he said. "But some things are worth the wait." In the following days, she worked harder than ever, perhaps trying to leave the project strong if she had to go. Together they finished the prototype engine, tested it, and watched its small green light blink to life. Emma clapped her hands with joy. Noah and Clara looked at each other, a quiet pride between them. That night they had dinner again. Clara laughed when Emma spilled her juice, and the sound filled the kitchen with warmth. When Emma went to bed, Noah walked Clara to her car as always. She turned before getting in. "It's strange," she said. "The first time I came here, I was hiding. I don't want to leave." He nodded. "Maybe that means you found what you needed." She looked up at the sky, then back at him. "Or who I needed," she said quietly. Neither moved for a long time. A soft hum of crickets filled the air. Then she took a careful breath and stepped toward him. Her hand brushed his arm just once, light as rain, before she turned and opened the car door. "Good night, Noah," she said. "Ta-da!" When she drove away, the small town slipped back into silence. Noah stayed outside for a long while, watching the faint trail of her car lights fade into the road. Something deep inside told him that the calm days were ending, that both their worlds were heading towards some kind of test neither could avoid. Still, that night he slept with the faint hope that maybe the test would bring them closer instead of apart.